So our next speaker, thank you, is Tom August, based at CEH, and he's going to talk about the project he's been working on called Bat2iNat. So Tom, when you're ready, you can see your screen. So.
Yeah, great, fab. Thanks for allowing me to come along and chat to you and kind of hop on my soapbox really for 20 minutes talking about some bat stuff. This isn't my day job. This is kind of like a hobby project, which we're going to talk about. But my day job, I work at the UK Centre for Ecology and Hydrology, with a background in field ecology and now playing with technology. I lead a lot of our computer vision research, so I kind of wanted to jump in the conversation that was going on before, but felt it was, well, we'd already covered quite a lot around the AI stuff, but happy to chat more about that. So I'm here today to talk about my passion for recording bats, and it's hopefully a really nice complement to Kieran's presentation, where there are some nice parallels and some differences as well between how bats and earthworms are recorded through iNaturalist. So I thought I would just very briefly say why we need records of bats. So bats are protected by law in the UK, and many of you will be familiar with data requests coming in asking for observations of bats. We have ecological surveys that are done to going out checking for bats before development work is done. But globally, because the tool I'm going to talk about is globally relevant, they're really important for pollination service, seed dispersal, pest control. Without them, we wouldn't have tequila, and no one wants to live in that world. So bats are really important. They're really important globally, and they're not particularly well studied for a mammal species because they're kind of harder to, or historically have been quite hard to observe. Although in recent times, we're sort of going back to sort of 30 years, but now we can use bat detectors to detect bats acoustically, so we can record their ultrasound, and the ultrasound that different bat species produce can be quite diagnostic of the species. So bats, let's try and understand whether we should expect there to be lots of records of bats on iNaturalist. Is that a fair assumption, a null hypothesis? There should be lots of records of bats on iNaturalist. Well, first of all, are there lots of bats to record? So there's over 1,100 species of bat. They're found on every continent except for Antarctica. And you can see here a map of the species richness. So there are some like definite hotspots in the tropics here. But even in the UK, we've got 18 species. You go out on a night in the summer and there will be bats flying where you are. Pretty much most kind of populated parts of the UK, there will be bats there to observe. So there are plenty of bats around for people to observe. So that's that criteria met. So bats are there. Are they easy to record? So they're easy to record if you have the right tool. So there's this cool little bat detector. I'm not sponsored. Called Echometer Touch. You can plug this into an Apple phone or an Android phone, and it will do the recording for you. It comes with a nice little app. It has AI as well, which is hit and miss. And it does the GPS and all sorts of stuff. So that kind of handles all the recording for you. It also allows you to share that to OneDrive or WhatsApp and all these sorts of things. So there's a great tool which makes it easy to record. Other tools are available, and they are not crazy expensive. I mean, when I started doing my bat stuff, you had to pay like £1,500–2,000 for a good bat detector. You can get this thing for like under £200. It's still out of some people's reach, but it's not crazy expensive. So we can record them. Okay. Once we've recorded them, can we analyze them easily to identify the species? Well, yeah, there's free software out there that allows you to visualize the calls. That's what you can see here on this graph on this computer screen. And there are good textbooks out there to help you figure out which species there are. So yeah, we can analyze the calls once we get them. So we can do all this, but are there people actually who want to do this? Well, yeah, there are loads of people, particularly in the UK. There's a big community of people who are out and about recording bats, primarily because of the legal protection the bats have. So because UK has strong protection for bats, then you have a whole industry of people out there who are recording bats. Ecological consultants, bats are a large part of what they do. And so this is I think this is the BCT, the Bat Conservation Trust conference from a few years ago, and you can see it gets good attendance of people who are fascinated by bats. And I also know kind of anecdotally that there are quite a lot of people amongst the kind of naturalist community who have bat detectors just for going out and listening to bats. So there are lots of people out there as well who are keen to do this. However, when we look at the records on iNaturalist, I thought this was kind of funny. I did a plot of the proportion of records that are bats. It says 0%. Well, it's not 0%, but it's so small, it might as well be 0%. Well, you might say there's a load of birds and insects on iNaturalist, so maybe it's not a surprise that bats don't really show up on that graph. You could also argue that the UK has more bat recording than elsewhere. But if you cut it to the UK, you still have 0% bats recorded. If you cut it down to mammals, then bats appear. So 3% of mammal observations in the UK are bats, but bats are 20% of mammals in the UK. So that's quite a lot under what you'd expect. And I'd also say, well, if I wanted to go out and observe deer, I have to kind of walk to certain bits of the countryside to observe deer, but I can put my bat detector out my flat window, and I live in the middle of the town and I hear bats every night. So that doesn't seem quite right. And when we dig down into that 3%, only 15% of those are verifiable. So by that I mean it needs to have a sound file uploaded, okay, so that I can interrogate that sound file. So what's going on? We've got a bit of a problem, and it is actually not straightforward, this problem, and a large part of it is the commercial interest. So there are undoubtedly vast amounts of bat data being recorded for commercial purposes, and that data for various reasons can't be shared. However, I don't believe that is the full story, because there is plenty of data that's being collected on bat walks, plenty of data that's being collected by non-professionals that simply is just not getting onto iNaturalist. So maybe, I mean, you could say, yeah, maybe people don't want to share it, but sharing is happening. It's happening on Facebook, for example. There's this Facebook group, the Bat Call Sound Analysis Workshop Facebook group, which I'm guessing was at some point set up around a Bat Call Sound Analysis Workshop. But since then, it's just become the de facto Facebook group for people who want help analyzing bat calls. And so you get posts like this where someone's put in a screenshot of some desktop software saying, oh, what's this? Can anyone help me with the ID? But the sound file's not shared. The image that's shared isn't optimal really for doing the identification. So people want to share these things and they want to have their records verified, but that's not happening through iNaturalist. So the main reason I think that's not happening through iNaturalist is iNaturalist is not set up for acoustics. Okay, when you upload a sound file, you get the ability to click play on it, right? A bat sound file is ultrasound, so you hit play and you hear nothing. All right, so that's not helpful. You've got to download it into your bit of software to visualize it. It could be very easily visualized on the iNaturalist platform. There's many ways of doing this. It's not proprietary or anything like that, but it's not done. And so what I thought was, well, this is a problem that I can solve. So I do a bit of coding. So I built a little tool for myself, predominantly, called Bat2iNat. And it basically does this uploading and sharing for you. The idea is, let's get this data that's recorded onto my phone or my tablet, or I've got on my PC from my Echometer touch recorder. Let's get this onto iNaturalist in as verifiable format as possible, because I'm also involved in verifying. So I want this to be like crystal clear. I can get through these as quick as possible. So the tool, you log into it with your iNaturalist username and password. That's so that the tool can upload your observations to your account. And you get this little agreement. I should say I shared this in that Facebook group after I first developed the tool, and just got a torrent of trolling about AIs and how AI is terrible. And I thought, oh, I've just wasted the last like 2 months of my free time building something that everyone hates. But once I got through, the standard social media response, some of what people said was useful, and I put into this kind of agreement. They're kind of worried about basically people churning rubbish through this tool, and so this agreement says I will behave myself essentially. Once you get into the tool, you can then upload your sound files. So you just select your sound files, whether they're on your phone or whether they're on your computer, and it sits there and churns away, and it does a few intelligent things as it's churning away. So this bat detector, the Echometer one, which goes in your phone, like a whole bunch of other bat detectors, have a standardized metadata format, which is amazing because that's not commonly done across technologies. So they all have this guano metadata format, which means that my code can easily pull out all the important bits of information, like the GPS location, the date, the species the classifier thought it was, or that the human redetermined it as, the model version for the detector that was used, etc., etc. So pull out all that metadata. It also detects the calls in the sequence. So it's not doing species identity. It's just finding where are the calls, the bat calls in the sequence. And it creates nice graphs, spectrograms of these with nice guidelines. So you can see exactly what the frequencies are, which is a key for identifying the species. So it creates 2 of these, one for the whole sequence, one for the loudest calls, a shorter sequence. It creates this little map of where the observation is. And it also will filter out observations that are in the same location. So something that's quite common is that I'll go out on my bat walk and I'll trundle down the river recording bats. And it might be that you get a whole bunch of bats flying around in one particular location. So you might get like 20, 30 records in one point. And you don't want all of those going up to iNaturalist because they're not really new observations, same species, same place, same night. So what the app will also do is filter out those. So it has to be at least 30 meters apart, which is approximately the detection distance of a bat detector. So it does all this for you, and then it pops them up onto iNaturalist. So this is this is me in Aarhus in Denmark last week. I hired one of those little electric e-scooters and went down the cycle path along this river in the middle of the night and recorded a whole bunch of bats on my Echometer. And then you just hit upload. It took about sort of 5-10 minutes to upload all of these onto iNaturalist. I then do go through and double check them all. This is what an individual observation looks like. So you've got your spectrogram there. You could flip, there's another spectrogram. You've got the raw acoustics as well. My records all CC0. And then in the notes, it's putting all the metadata, dumping a whole bunch of metadata in there, as well as using some iNat observation fields, which already exist for bat detector model, echolocation frequency, sampling rate, etc., etc. So really trying to get as much data in there as possible to aid the reuse of the information and aid its verification. So this is available for anyone to use, and I've kind of advertised it's there for people to use on various forums, and it has not been a tidal wave of people interested in using this tool, I should say. And I'm kind of curious as to why that might be. I think probably people are sort of a bit set in their ways in the way that how they treat their bat records. The interest I have had is from people who are kind of running citizen science projects and interested in uploading large amounts of data, and they think that this kind of could be useful. But yeah, it's there for anyone to use, and who knows, maybe it's one of those things that will slowly snowball over time. Because there's very, very little data for bats on iNaturalist, it's not easy to get to the top of the mountain. So I'm currently the #1 recorder of bats on iNaturalist in Denmark, UK, Switzerland, and Germany. And most of that is when I go to like a conference or a meeting. So a few days I'll go out in the evenings and record. And this kind of here to boost my ego, but also kind of to show that there's so little out there on iNaturalist that we can really make quite a big difference, I think, quite quickly, hopefully by using a tool like Bat2iNat. So in conclusion, there's lots of data out there. It's just not very easy to share on iNaturalist. Bat2iNat is designed to try and make that easy, and to make it easy to verify the observations that are shared, but also to highlight that we shouldn't need Bat2iNat. Like, everything that it does could be done by iNaturalist itself very easily, and would have benefits for orthopter recordings, for bird recordings, for a whole bunch of other acoustic data. So I guess my ask to anyone from iNaturalist who is listening would be to do all this. You can do all this, and I can share everything that I've done, and hopefully share some ideas, and then we won't need this tool. And finally, anyone who wants to use this, drop a message in the chat or find me on Tinterweb, and I'm happy to give you access. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. That was brilliant, really interesting. It looks like we've got a few hands up, so let me get the right. Yeah, so John Morton.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, John.
Yeah, hi. It's just a quick question, because I have tried to, well, I have uploaded a few bat records. I'm not a bat expert, but I've got a very cheap meter. So and I used, what I did was because it needs a photo, and obviously a photo is not usually possible for bats. So I developed this technique where I'd hold up my magenta bat detector, which kind of illuminates slightly, and I videoed the bat. So mainly I've got a video of my bat detector showing the frequency tuned to, with a sound recording accompanying it of the sound coming out of the meter, if you get what I mean. So
yeah.
So for example, I was fairly sure it was a pipistrelle because I got it, a common pipistrelle. I'd got it at that frequency, and I think I shared the videos with some local bat experts sometimes to some of the trickier ones, and I wasn't sure whether it was a noctule or whatever. But what I did with iNaturalist, as a kind of trying to find a way of getting it verified, is I couldn't upload the video file. I don't think that's possible with iNat. I'm not sure. So what I did, I just put in a comment. I linked. I'd uploaded the video to YouTube, and I did a link in a comment to the YouTube video. So anyone wanting to verify my pipistrelle record could, if they wanted to, watch the sound recording and verify the frequency it was made at. And I was hoping that might, I mean, it's kind of thing I'd probably send to the LERC as well, to make sure it enters the the planning process. I wouldn't rely on that, but I just thought I wanted to attempt to get it verified on our iNaturalist.
Yeah, I mean, I commend your effort. I think it kind of exemplifies the difficulty, right, and the problem we currently have with all that work that you had to go through to try and get something verifiable on there. Yeah.
Thanks. Tony, question.
Hi. Yeah, I have some notes here because we have used Bat2iNat. We donated 10 Echometer Touch 2s to the Somerset Bat group, and we trialled it with Andy Avery on a Taunton count a month or two back. And I think there was a perceived reluctance for people because of this public nature of iNaturalist, but of course they're not roost sites, and I believe there's something about obfuscation of possible roost sites being done through the processing. But it was considered to be a great success because there was a post-survey debrief where the volunteers could see the data on iNaturalist showing what had just been recorded and how it was being shown. So our experience was rather good, and good enough that we gave these all to the back group to go off and produce more records, because flight records lead to more roost sites being found in places where people wouldn't normally go to record. Same for iNaturalist data generally, I think. Yeah.
Great, thanks, Tony.
And the data is available, of course, on iNaturalist. I have links if anybody wants them.
Oh, great. Thanks, Tony. Kieran.
I was just gonna make a comment, Tom, about, you said that there was no tidal wave. I wonder if the problem is because you need a bat detector to go out. A lot of the bat groups have quite a different model to other naturalistry groups. They rely on the data for their funding. A lot of bat groups essentially do data searches like an LERC, and I just wondered if that will always be an issue with getting people who are at least involved with the bat group to move over to a new system.
I think you could partly be right, and I think the people I've been kind of promoting it to is that community, that bat groups and consultants. And so I've been I also kind of been reaching out to people, because I can find people on iNaturalist who are doing lots of bat observations, and can even tell from their screenshots which ones are using echo meter touches. And so I've reached out to some of them as well, and some of them are coming on board. But I think the kind of target you want to reach are, general members of the public, naturalists who are happy to share data and who have this tool. And I think it's actually quite a hard group to use, group to access, sorry, unless, well, yeah, I don't know how I could.
I think you'll probably need to prove its worth for the bat groups outside of their own networks before they'll come on board. Because getting, sometimes even with bat groups, they don't always have good relationships with their local LERC, and making sure that data, it's a different world when you're talking about EPS where there is commercial use of the data. But I think as a means of getting data into the system for, like you said, for citizen science projects, etc., I think it's fantastic. And I think the fact that you've done it all in your spare time as well, I think it'll grow slowly. And once the back groups see some benefit to them, then it'll grow fast.
Yeah, I'm hoping that, so we're doing some work with Sussex or Somerset, I get confused, who's using it kind of at a larger scale. And maybe we can do some sort of little publication or newsletter or something around that activity to kind of highlight it and highlight the benefits through that as a use case.
Thank you. Lisa.
A comment and a question. First of all, Tom, another excellent presentation. Thank you ever so much. Although it's not ideal to be creating these bespoke workarounds outside of iNaturalist, it's really impressive that you have, and especially that you've done it in your spare time, and that it's something that's working and you're starting to get interest in. So very well done. But I also wanted to ask, how much bat data flows through iRecord? I mean, does it face the same issues of people just not sharing data, not having that culture of sharing data currently, or is there actually more data currently flowing via iRecord?
Yeah, I'm afraid I can't speak to how much data is on iRecord of bats. I don't know if anyone else on the call knows that.
I can give a little bit of context from when I've worked at BCT. Most of the data goes through the bat groups. Some data sets are held by BCT, but when I left about 6 years ago, they were launching an iRecord form, which they were making available for the bat groups to use. So they definitely came to the party quite late with bats. I don't know how much it's being used, but there is a bespoke bat form produced by BCT that's on there. But I don't think any of the national surveys or anything like that are run through iRecord. So I imagine bats will lag behind other things. They won't be as much as they should, but it'll probably be a bit more than iNaturalist.
Thank you, Lisa. Was there anything else?
There's a
Brilliant.
question in the chat, Giselle,
Oh.
sorry, just from Wilma. Could we have some examples of how to get summary data from iNaturalist, like the graphs of bats as percentage of mammals? I don't know whether that's something that we could show.
I guess I could just briefly say that you know, iNaturalist has quite a good search facility. So I just did searches for, you know, Chiroptera and UK, and then you can see how many occurrences there are, and then mammals UK, and then I just created the pie chart from that. So those graphs were just very simple PowerPoint graphs from some numbers picked off iNaturalist.
So I don't think it's a case of iNaturalist creates them for you. It's taking the figures and then making them into your own
Correct,
charts.
yeah.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Tom. Okay,